Hello, great to be here. Thank you for asking me to be here, even though I am from the Navy. I have a Navy background, as everyone heard, so I really appreciate you giving me the time to tell you about my visions of the future. So as you heard, I'm going to talk about leveraging technology, basically a human-centered approach. And then moving forward, and of course, as luck would have it, I'm already having technical difficulties getting the slides to come around. There we go. All right, so yes, I was in the Navy. I have landed airplanes on an aircraft carrier, and it was actually this time in the Navy, and I flew A4s and F-18s, that really helped me understand that we were in for a whole new future with automation. Even though I think aircraft carrier pilots like to believe that we're better than every other pilot on the planet because we can do this, indeed. The computer can do it better than every single pilot. And so that was a big awakening to me to understand that, yes, Navy pilots, fighter pilots are the best of the best, but we're not better than computers. So I went back to graduate school, got my Ph.D., spent 10 years at MIT as a professor. Then I came south for warmer climates, down to Duke University, and now I run the Humans and Autonomy Laboratory, and we look at the intersection of humans and machines. So I think that one of the things that I get asked all the time is I make some pretty big predictions about where we are or are not going to be in the future. So the way I know how we are, what's going to happen in the future, is that I apply this rubric that I call the skills, rule, knowledge, and expertise rubric. So on the very bottom, you see it's skill-based reasoning. When we put people in flight school and in the Navy, you know, it was a 2-year expedition for me. The reason that you go to flight school for 2 years is to learn the skills, that they become so automatic that you can always understand how to make sure that the plane is going up or in stable flight or going down if you need to. Once you have the cognitive capacity and you've learned the highly automatic skills of flying, keeping the aircraft in balanced flight, then you have enough spare cognitive capacity for rule-based reasoning. This is where we learn to apply procedures. We see certain signals in the world and we know what are the right procedures/rules to apply. Then as we go up this arrow, then you see knowledge-based reasoning. Knowledge-based reasoning is judgment under uncertainty, trying to figure out what to do when the rules and the procedures don't exactly match the environment. And every single pilot of every single service can tell you that there have been situations where they had a problem and they had to reason their way in using out-of-the-box thinking. And at the highest level of this reasoning is expert-based reasoning. And I like to use Miracle on the Hudson as an example of this because Chesley Sullenberger had a dual engine flame out and it wasn't really clear to him whether he could make the Teterboro airport or he was going to have to land in the river. And so he used his judgment based on 30 plus years of experience and he made the right call. It's not clear that automation would have made the right call given the fact that there were so many variables under high levels of uncertainty that he had to consider. And this is where the concept of uncertainty is so, so important in thinking about how to balance humans and computers for the future. Computers do not do a good job at reasoning under high levels of uncertainty. And this is what we're going to spend some time. I'm going to show you some pictures. And this is where humans are the best. So the right place to put humans when we think about where should humans be and where should computers be, humans need to be at the regions where we need judgment under uncertainty, knowledge-based reasoning, or we need humans at expert-based reasoning. Computers do best under skill-based reasoning and rule-based reasoning, assuming that the sensors work correctly. And that is a big if. So let's look at some good and bads of automation and autonomy. Oh, and let me tell you what the difference is. Automation is when you've got very little probabilistic reasoning in the automated system. Autonomy is when you have a lot of probabilistic, where the computer is making guesses. You can go to my website and read a lot more deep explanations of that, but that's a good, quick way for you to understand. Am I talking about an automated system or am I talking about an autonomous system? So when we look at the Boeing 737, I'm going to use that as a bad example of function allocation. So the Boeing 737 MAX had an MCAS system in it. It was kind of some advanced logic, a little bit of autonomy, just a tiny bit, mostly automation, little bit of autonomy, where the computers were trying to basically do flight control. And the problem was that the pilots did not know that the system was there and did not understand how the system would or would not kick in. So that's bad. You shouldn't put an automated / autonomous system into a human controlled system if the human does not understand what is going on, because in this case where they had a sensor failure, i.e. high uncertainty, then the human had no way of understanding what was happening. Another hallmark of bad human-machine interaction design is the Tesla Autopilot. Now, I love Teslas, I love the car, but the Autopilot is a nightmare of a human-machine interaction system. This is a picture of a Tesla that ended up hitting a semi-truck broadside and went underneath it and did very little damage to the car, but killed the driver. And this happened because the driver did not understand that the sensors, which are radar and computer vision, simply could not pick out the truck against the background. The driver thought that surely a car will always stop if a huge obstacle like a semi-truck that is lateral in front of it is there, but it didn't. And so I think this is another good example of human machine design gone wrong because the sensors were deeply flawed. And we're going to find out that sensors deeply flawed is going to be a huge problem going forward in the future. Last bad example that we can talk about in the military, I could pull bad examples of human function machine allocation from all of the services, but I chose to pick one from the Army because the Air Force asked me to speak today and I'm from the Navy. So I thought we'd pick on the one service that wasn't represented here today. And this is the Patriot missile system. In the first Gulf War, the Patriot missile system did terribly. It never shot down an enemy missile and it only shot down friendly aircraft, killing both US and British pilots. So this would be a good example of bad human-machine interaction design and bad function allocation, because the enlisted operators inside the Patriot batteries, they had to make a decision given very little information, and there was a lot of high uncertainty around what they were seeing on the displays. They had no ability to augment their information, and they had no ability to augment through communications. And so the Patriot missile operators were basically forced to let the machine fire on its own, and in all cases incorrectly, because the human did not have any other way to figure out what would be the right answer going forward with that problem. So pretty bad. We see bad human-machine interaction designs all around. So then the question is, where do we see good examples? So I think a couple of the best examples that I can show you is the picture on your left is a robot that takes the place of the right seat pilot. This is a project that I worked on with Aurora Flight Sciences, who is now part of Boeing. So Boeing, please don't feel bad if you're listening to it. You get both bad and good call outs. So this robot under the Alias DARPA program, it actually responds by voice to the pilot in the left seat. So the pilot can tell the robot, Alias, can you take over? I need to go get a cup of coffee in the back. Alias can take the yoke, it can actuate buttons and levers. It is there to reduce the pilot workload, and the pilot can talk to the robot can talk back or give information back in a screen. So I would say this is a really great balance of human-machine allocation, because the human is letting the computer know what it needs, and the computer is not there to replace the pilot. Rather, the computer is there to augment the pilot and help the pilot out when the pilot is under periods of high workload. The picture on the right is Amazon's warehouse system. Quick conflict of interest disclosure. I'm actually on sabbatical this year and I'm working half-time for Amazon Robotics. So I would have shown you this slide even if I hadn't, because Amazon figured out a long time ago, and this was more than 15 years ago, that these little robots could come underneath these carts, pick up the carts and take them to a picking station where there's a human. And the human actually will pick things off the cart, and then that's how you get your Amazon packages delivered to you. This is great function allocation because Humans no longer have to work the big warehouse floors and potentially be exposed to either falling packages or other workman's compensation issues with forklifts. Now, humans just stay in one protected spot and the robots do all the dirty work of running around the warehouse floor. So this is another great application and a good understanding of where human-machine allocation really should be. So going forward, you know, what should the military be thinking about in systems of the future? Well, as autonomy increases, we're going to need increased human supervision. And let me explain why. So the picture that you're seeing here is from Bosch, but this problem that I'm about to describe is true for all driverless systems today. Cars, the computer vision systems and augmented with other sensors, they're very brittle. They cannot understand inductive reasoning in the world. And what do I mean by that? So when you see what the car sees, you see that this computer vision system, which is looking at two cars, you and everyone else out there understands that this is just two cars. The computer vision system sees two cars, three bikes, and only one person on a bike. And you can tell that this is just a picture. It's an advertisement on the back of a car. But the way that machine learning / deep learning algorithms work, they're very brittle. They just see the patterns of the bike. And the algorithms think I'm looking at three bikes, when in fact, it's just pictures of bikes. So these brittle problems are going to be a huge problem going forward. And this is why you still need a driver in the loop, even though you think you have an advanced driver assistance system. So let me explain another problem that we're seeing. Speed limit sign. You can tell that this is a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit sign. But you can tell it's kind of not a right speed limit sign. Some kids have been using spray paint or whatever. The 3 has been modified a bit. This small modification, just a little bit of black tape on a speed limit sign, can cause a Tesla today to read the sign as 85 miles an hour. And in fact, there were some researchers from Mobileye who demonstrated this, that Teslas will see an 85-mile-an-hour sign. So if you drive a Tesla through a rural urban area and it sees this sign, it's going to accelerate to 85 miles an hour in a rural zone, potentially. So that's bad. And it's bad because the computer vision system can't make the determination between a fully connected 8 and just this extended 8, whereas humans can see this right away. But this just isn't a problem for the driverless car world. It's also a problem from Homeland Security when we think about facial recognition. This is why facial recognition systems really should not be used now, because they are incredibly brittle and bad. So a group of researchers at Berkeley, University of Washington, did a study where they demonstrated that if you put these 3 weird, wacky glasses, which we would not think of as being wacky at all on a college campus, you put these glasses on these 3 people and the computer vision system will see these 3 people underneath it. All right, why does that happen? It happens because if you know how convolutional neural nets work, you understand that the way they pick out patterns in the world is not the way that you and I pick out patterns in the world. So these incredibly brittle devices are going to cause a lot of problems going forward. We are nowhere near artificial general intelligence. We need to babysit these systems quite a bit. So going forward for the next 10 to 20 years, we need to really look at collaborative human-machine systems as opposed to human-machine systems that you think can be left unattended. All right, well, I really, really appreciate all the time and effort you gave me today. This is my website to my laboratory. You can find all the papers that talk about these projects and more, and I thank you for your attention.